Remember when you used to watch 12 anime episodes a day, no problem, and enjoying every second of it? Yeah, that shit is a thing of the past, because these days it feels more like a chore than anything else. Over the years I grew apart from anime, and somewhat recently it got pretty extreme. Back when the first half of Re:Zero Season 2 was airing, I realized that I just can't do this anymore. If I remember correctly, the new episode came out every Wednesday, and every week I went to my favorite pirating site on that day while having this weird feeling of anxiety in my stomach, secretly hoping that the new episode isn't out, and when I see the episode did come out, I hated it. It felt like waking up in the morning, preparing yourself to go to work, but instead of brushing teeth, showering and putting clothes on, I clicked on the episode, an ad pop-up window appeared, thanks adblock, and then I put the speed on 1.5. Torture. That was the moment where I realized that the flame isn't there anymore. But it isn't that I'm tired of the way Japanese stories and characters are written, not at all. This problem is very much related to anime specifically, because manga fucking slaps. Yes, the actual title of this video should be Why Manga is Better Than Anime. I've been reading manga for around 10 years, but over the last 3 years it has almost taken over anime completely, and there are good reasons for that. Anime as a medium has huge problems, so let's get into that. The very obvious one is pacing. 95% of all anime adaptations are paced like ass. Characters just stand there and talk. So much talking. That isn't a problem in manga because you read with your own pace. When I read a panel in manga that takes around 2 seconds, but in an anime it's like 5 because the voice actors have to properly act out those lines. That might sound nitpicky, but according to my anime list I've watched around 5,900 episodes, so it's really painful at this point. Another thing that I only experience in anime is characters repeating the same thing over and over, just with different sentences. That mostly happens in light novel adaptations, so I guess you can't really blame anime, but I don't read light novels, so fuck you anime. I really noticed that in Re:Zero. Holy fuck. Characters just talk and talk about really simple concepts, and once again my time is getting wasted. Am I weird for caring about my time like that? I rarely hear people criticize that, but it is what it is. Another thing that you find in Japanese writing in general is this stupid questioning. What I mean is, character A says, I saw a man walking across the street. Character B asks, a man across the street? And then character A goes in depth on that. Now tell me, why the fuck do the first 2 sentences exist? Just there to waste your time. And it always feels weird. Like, imagine real people talking like that. Hey, I watched a movie yesterday. You watched a movie? Yeah, it was pretty good, but it was late after that, so I went to bed. You went to bed? See what I mean? It's fucking terrible. Now we've established, dialogue in anime wastes your time. But not just that, more often than not, that shit also tries to put you to sleep with the visuals. Because the lines are taken from 1 or 2 panels from a chapter, the characters just stand there and only their mouths move. If you're lucky, you'll get some hand movement. Of course there are exceptions, but still. Most of the time they just stand there for 10 seconds with 2 or 3 frames just switching back and forth. Like, what are the directors doing? Use the fucking medium of animation. But that of course is expensive and time consuming. I get that. But at some point you have to ask the question, what is the point? I'm just watching a colored panel with some voices. Might as well read it and save several hours of time. Since we're on the topic of animation, let's go in depth. As I just mentioned, talking rarely gets more than a few frames, so you can't argue that animation is superior in that aspect. I won't even bother to compare frame to panel, that would be just bullying at this point. All the panels you're seeing right now are 100 times more impressive to me than anything anime has to offer visually. So what in the fuck makes anime a worthwhile medium? There's one thing, the holy word, Sakuga. This is where the animators go crazy. Most of the time that happens during action scenes, and while that is cool, I don't really care for it. Action, I mean. I remember when I was 16, 2 people punching each other pumped me up, but now I'm always tempted to skip those scenes because they do nothing for me. The only interesting part of fighting is the emotional conflict between the 2 parties, and that doesn't need animation at all. While everyone was going crazy over the fights in God of High School, I was catching up on these stupid teenagers coming to terms with their emotions. So anime has nothing to offer to me that manga doesn't do better. Or has it? 2 things that I haven't gone in depth on are music and voice acting. Those get often named in favor of anime, and it's understandable, but I don't agree. Voice acting is simple. Unfortunately, I am cursed. I cannot enjoy voice acting in any medium or any language. I always see the person standing in a booth in front of a microphone. That always bothers me, and it's the worst in anime. Imagine a 30-year-old woman saying this to you.
27とのにゃらびでにゃくにゃくいにゃにゃくにゃにゃはんにゃにゃだいにゃんにゃくにゃらべてにゃがにゃがめ。
Yeah, I think I'ma pass on that. While most people don't have this problem, I think it's understandable, but the music thing requires a bit more to get where I'm coming from. First up, I don't count openings and endings. Those often slap, but most of the time they are separate from the show they get used in. So let's only judge the stuff that is playing during the episodes. I think my point is getting a bit more agreeable now. Most of that stuff is completely forgettable and just barely good enough to fit the moments. But while reading manga, I can choose what music to listen to. Holy Land is a manga about people finding their place in the world, and we see that through the eyes of the protagonist, Yu Kamishiro. Yu doesn't have friends, or hobby, or goal. He gets constantly bullied by his peers and his life seems overall quite miserable. But eventually he finds himself in the streets at night fighting for his life. And at some point it turns to fighting to find meaning. There's a lot of violence in this manga, often quite pointless as well, but Yu is different. When we see him fight, it always feels like it's the right thing for him to do. Now what does that have to do with music and anime? I have a playlist filled with tracks from anime, games, as well as J-pop and J-rock. While reading Holy Land during an early fight scene, it just happened that layers from Recreators played, and something magical happened. It fits so well both in sound and lyrics that I had it on repeat for over 100 chapters. To me, this song is the theme of Holy Land, and never has a track during an anime episode made me feel like that. Well, I think I fulfilled what the title promised at this point. I've explained why I grew apart from anime in depth, but there's one thing that I just have to get off my chest. Anime adaptations. Now that I'm a manga reader, it happens quite frequently that a manga I like gets an adaptation. And of course, every single time I have the only logical reaction to that. Oh no. For every Attack on Titan or Hunter x Hunter, we get in Berserk or Tokyo Ghoul that totally butcher the masterpieces they adapt from. Chainsaw Man is pretty much my favorite thing ever and I'm scared of the upcoming anime. Chainsaw Man has so many layers. You can enjoy it as a crazy wild ride, a story about a boy growing up and becoming independent, or just enjoy this beautiful woman. Will the people in charge really be able to represent all that and way more that I haven't mentioned? My immediate reaction is no, and MAPPA being the studio in charge certainly doesn't help. It feels like Russian roulette, honestly. And it hurts. It's like I'm giving my child to some random people and hoping it goes well. And why is this the norm? Why can't I be excited for my favorite manga getting an adaptation so that more people get to enjoy this masterpiece? Why is there always this fucking anxiety? Well, that's quite obvious, because the anime industry is absolute hell, but that topic is way too big for this video. Don't get me wrong, I still watch anime sometimes. I recently watched Cowboy Bebop for the first time. It's good, but overall manga is just my thing now. I haven't watched Jujutsu Kaisen. I'm waiting for the manga to finish and then binge it in like 4 or 5 days instead of the several years that the anime only suffer through. Yeah, that's it. If you've enjoyed the video, please join me in my prayers for the Chainsaw Man adaptation. With that being said, thank you for watching and bye.